Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm an American living in the south of France. We've been here for about 3 years, and I do want to start off by saying I'm not a tax expert and I cannot give you tax advice. But I will share my experience and what has maybe worked for me. This is the first year that I've filed my taxes without using a tax service. I used free file fillable forms through the IRS, and you submit everything online, and it was fairly easy to navigate the system. Obviously the taxes are very complicated. I have a very straightforward situation. I'm not working for a company in the US. I have worked here in France and had money to declare, but I had already paid French taxes on that. I ended up talking with an American who lives here and has filed his own taxes here. And from what he gathered through talking with some tax lawyers, you can go with a tax lawyer and pay like $3,000 or $4,000, crazy amounts of money, and have them file your taxes. And really what you're paying for is their stamp of approval. You're less likely to be audited if there is that lawyer's seal of approval on your taxes. Because I didn't owe anything, and because this guy also didn't owe anything in US taxes, our taxes were pretty straightforward. The first year we were here, we used an accountant in Paris. We live in the South, but we hired someone who was an American living in France. It felt like a scam. We were never quoted a price, which I wish I had gotten that information from the beginning. I had gotten some information from someone else that his rates were around like 500 for the tax season. And because it was our first year and we were filing American federal, two different state taxes for my husband and I, and our French taxes for the first time, we ended up going with an accountant. I think in the end, we ended up paying like 2,500 or something, which really feels like a scam. And my husband actually talked the guy down a little bit. He was trying to charge us more. It's not that difficult to file federal and state taxes. Like, I could have done that part online. What I didn't know how to do was the rest of the year that we were here and worked, like how to file those taxes in the American, through the American system. My husband is a French citizen, not an American citizen, so he does not have to file taxes, but I have to for the rest of my life. And my children will eventually have to file theirs when they become independent. This year I filed married filing separately, and I did that the last year as well, because my husband doesn't need to file American taxes. You do have an automatic extension with your taxes. So instead of the April 15th date, it automatically is extended to June 15th. So you don't have to do anything to get that extension. It's automatic if you live abroad. And this year, I believe it's June 16th is the day, because the 15th falls on a Sunday. And then there is another extension you can take, and I believe it's October 15th. It may be October 16th this year. I'm not sure what day the 15th falls on. It is good to have that June extension because we didn't have all of our French taxes. It's French tax season now here. So we didn't have all of the information for our French taxes until recently. So now I can go ahead and file everything. Last year, I used my expat taxes, which was great. It worked well. It's like TurboTax, and you can use other software. I think TurboTax has a program. What's frustrating about it is to pay money. I paid, I think it was 125 euro last year for taxes, and I didn't owe anything. So it's a lot of money to spend just to file taxes every year when you don't owe anything. This year, I took all of my forms from last year and copied a lot of the information from those forms. So I already knew from last year's taxes what my expat taxes had already filed. So I used a lot of those same forms. And in the free file fillable forms, they do make it easy to add forms, like if you need to add some forms. And there are also instructions on each tax form. It doesn't mean it's easy, but there are instructions if you need more information on how to fill out the form. When I first submitted my free file fillable forms this year, there were 2 errors that I had made. One was clicking the wrong box on one of the forms, and it tells you where you made the error, so I could go back and make that correction and resubmit. And then the other one was how I submitted my husband's name, I believe, because I was trying to completely leave him off the form because it didn't matter. And so I think if it's unimportant, I think you write like NRA or something. And so I had to write it on his first name area and last name area. Anyway, once I made those corrections and filed again, it was accepted. We will see if there are any issues that come up that I need to fix in the future. Like I said, I'm not an expert. This is my first year doing it, but I just wanted to share this option because I didn't really know about it. I'm so used to using like TurboTax or paying. And I just hate the American tax system. I think everyone does. I think it's so corrupt. I think making people who are not earning a ton of money, for the lower and middle class, it's really hard to pay money to have someone do your taxes. And then people who have tons of money can afford to pay someone to do all their taxes. It's not a big deal for them. But here in France, taxes are pretty straightforward. They give you an estimate of what they believe you owe in taxes, and you just double check that with your income. It's pretty easy. And if you have problems, we had to go make some corrections at our local tax office, and they were so wonderful, so friendly and helpful. And I know that's not the case everywhere, but it's just been such a night and day experience between taxes in the US versus taxes in France. If you have any suggestions or tips, feel free to leave them in the comments. I can try to answer questions. I will put links to the information, the free file fillable forms, and anything else that I've mentioned. I also want to talk about the FBAR because that is another thing that you have to file if any of your bank accounts, your foreign bank accounts, have reached over $10,000. So we left most of our money in the US and we can use that as we need to, but this is the first year that one of the accounts that I'm on has reached 10,000. It doesn't matter for my husband. He doesn't have to file an FBAR because he's not a US citizen. But as a US citizen, I have to file an FBAR. It's supposed to prevent fraud, and it's just to let the US government know what kind of foreign bank accounts I hold. I think it's so personal and just very intrusive, but I filed it for the first time and it was pretty simple to file, very straightforward. The only thing to note on the website, you cannot save the information. So I would try to do it all in one sitting if you can. It really doesn't take that long if you have all the information. You need any bank account that you are on that you have access to. And so the account numbers, the address of the bank, the name of the bank, and then you'll need the highest amount that was in that account for the year. So you will have to go through your bank statements and find that highest amount. So just looking through the bank statements and seeing what month that amount was the highest, and it's down to the dollar. You don't have to worry about cents, but just figuring out that amount down to the dollar and then entering each account that you have, each foreign bank account or non-US account. You will see tax companies advertising that they will also do your FBAR for you. It actually has nothing to do with taxes. You can do it completely separately. It is not filed through the IRS. But tax companies, in my opinion, are taking advantage of Americans by offering to file your FBAR for you. It's not complicated to file. I promise you can do it yourself. And I wouldn't pay a company extra money to file an FBAR. It's only my first year doing it, but it really was pretty straightforward. Everything is labeled. If you need help with something, you can always Google it. There are plenty of resources out there that can help explain the different parts of the FBAR, but it took me, once I had all the information gathered, it probably took me 20 minutes to fill out, and that's double checking everything and making sure I've got all the correct information in there. So I highly recommend just doing it yourself and not paying a tax expert to file that for you. And the dates for the FBAR, you get an automatic extension through June 16th, I believe, this year. And then you can also file an extension through October 15th. And there is a section that lets you add why you're filing it late, so you can explain why you're filing it late. Another thing I want to mention about filing taxes, that my American friend here told me, and the lawyers told him this information, were that taxes are not black and white. They are not so straightforward. That's why a lot of lawyers have gotten involved in taxes, because there's a lot of legal speak in these tax forms and they can be interpreted in different ways. So if you make a mistake, you are allowed to make mistakes on your taxes. They don't have to be perfect. If you honestly make a mistake, you're not going to be necessarily heavily penalized for that. And for people like myself and the guy who was helping me with taxes this year, we don't owe anything. So I don't imagine they would try to find someone who actually didn't earn any money in the US and isn't earning enough here to have to pay US taxes. The limit, I don't know the exact limit off the top of my head, but it's over like 100,000. I would have to be making over $100,000 here in France before I would owe any of that money to the US. So you have to be making really good money. And at that point, I would just hire an accountant. If I was making over 100,000 here, I would hire an accountant to do that for me and not have to worry about it. But for your average person living abroad, I just don't think it's necessary. And so we'll see how this year goes. I hope this information can be helpful to you. I was searching all over the place for any kind of helpful information, and I know this might not be a straightforward answer to your questions or your specific issues, but it's just my experience. If it can help anyone, that would make me so happy, because taxes are terrible. The whole tax filing system is so terrible in the US. So good luck this year. Happy tax season.